All right, so I've been talking a lot about connecting with ancestors during this time and how I used art. So triplegoddessarts.com. Literal arts, but also healing arts, astrology, many different things that are offered and that I participate in and have knowledge about and offer. Now, I talked a little bit about how in 2015, I had this major awakening when I was in India, and I felt so connected to everything there. I felt more home in India than I felt here my whole life, except when I was in the middle of the woods on the mountain with my dog. Then it was like home. But other than that, when I was in India, I felt connected, reconnected. I felt home. Now, I came home and I did a series of artwork that was kind of the first inclination of connection to ancestors. And so the first one was this one, which is like wild. I know. So normally I would do artwork that I was looking at a photograph and then I copied what I saw in shape. This is what I taught. I teach a lot of kids that I interact with is things like looking at the shapes, trying to see the shapes, and then I will show them how to highlight and shade by placing them in light positions or placing myself or whatever they need to kind of show them the example in a light placement so they can see what a reflection does and how that looks. And then that teaches them the difference between shading and highlighting. And they can pick this up very, very young. I worked extensively with my ex's daughter on a lot of different art projects. So this here was the first one in 2015. This was the second one in 2015. And then this one, which is like a little bit fantasy, I suppose. As is the first one, seemingly. And then this one. So this was not the first time kind of connecting to my ancestors. I've always been connected to the stars in a way that a lot of people around me didn't seem to feel the same about. And I've always had my own way of interacting with a lot of things. So when I did these photographs or these pictures, they came from kind of my stream of consciousness. They came from inside of me, from my heart and my connection. And of course, my mother, her roots can be traced to Scotland and then the UK area, and also Inuit Indigenous is what her mother's side of the family is. And then, they migrated to Harpswell Island, some of them. One of them was an indentured servant to a man named Joseph McMillan, and his parents both died when he was a toddler. In England during the trials, and I believe it was 1626 they died close together, and then he was indentured to a family, and then they brought him to America when he was 14. And then after that, most of her family was some of the first settlers, the first colonizers, the first ones arriving, but they were of mixed blood usually, or in Moses's instance, indentured to a man. And then also the Inuit side of things, so Inuit Canadian. And then my dad's family is all from the South, and that they were Louisiana, South Carolina, and appearing, in like 1850s with no parentage, or one woman, South Carolina, in 1796 with no parentage, and kind of popping up in the 1850s all of a sudden with no link to parentage, and just they just popped up and showed up. And I was always told that they were Choctaw, and I always listened to what my grandmothers had to say when they told stories about it. And then I only had names to link to all of this, and then my artwork. So after this, 2015, when I did these, I then put up a picture, again, December 8th of 2018, with the intention of doing an ancestor altar. And that was kind of my ode to them. And I wanted to be able to connect with them through my magical practices and through my altar devotionals, which is essentially a morning prayer. I guess a lot of people looked at what I did and called it voodoo or hoodoo. I just call it ancestral. So then in May, well, actually it starts with Halloween. So this picture here, which I called Beltane Reawakening. This one, on Halloween of 2019, I believe it was before I touched a piece of the moon and a piece of Mars in a crystal museum in Bethel, which was really powerful as well. And on Halloween, in magical traditions and some other traditions, it's the Day of the Dead, and it's considered a sacred day. You honor your ancestors, and you also do what you would like to do with your year on that day. So you sort of go through. So I wore belly dance costumes, I painted, and I did this really quick picture painting because it was just the intention. I want to paint this year. I want to devote more time to painting because, again, I've done art my whole life. I like to do a lot of portraits and different things like that, and it started as a kid with me liking to draw animals and insects and different things, and I've always been a huge doodler. And then painting, of course, but this one I began working on after this one, which was the Keepers of the Earth, and this one I began doing in April of 2020. We are the keepers of the earth. After the Great Spirit Incarnate made contact with me in March of 2020, March 5th, and then she made contact with me in April. At the time, I believe NASA registered 2 star neutrons colliding, which is funny because that's something I used as a mantra to heal my spinal cord injury. So this one, then this one, and this one I began to work on again extensively in the beginning of May. And on May the 4th of 2020, I had a picture taken of me with my hands turned up, one hand turned up and one hand turned down, looking up at the sky, and my dog is next to me. And that was so that I could do this picture because she was making contact with me. So she was an ancestor that was reawakening inside of me because I had done all of this ancestral work. Yemanja made contact with me in February of 2019. And what happened throughout the year 2019 was really interesting for me because it brought a lot of my ancestral magic within me to the forefront. Things that I had had inside of me forever, but really started to come forward. And September of 2014 was another really powerful month on the mountain for me when I was home, but I'll try to keep this sort of on topic. So I began painting this in May of 2020, the very beginning. And on May the 4th of 2020, I had that picture taken of me so that I could better appropriately get her dimensions and her angles correctly. On May 10th of 2020, I was hit in the spine with a chair. And then after that happened, this ancestor made contact with me in meditation. And she showed me that her partner / owner, it would seem, they were in love, but there was a lot of abuse and dishonor there. So I guess he wasn't in love with her, but she maybe was in love with him, similar to my situation. He clearly didn't love me because no man would have done the things that he did to me if he loved me, but I did love him. It's a fault of people that are too forgiving and too giving and too kind that we have a tendency to stay with people who are not healthy and are abusive because we somehow say that it's love, because if we actually acknowledge that it's not, I don't know, it could be scary, or maybe we don't have anybody there, or maybe we don't feel we deserve better. But once you're in a really bad situation, like a man hits you in the spine with a chair and you don't have a lot of support around you, things can go really badly, which is why I'm posting so much about it and sharing about it. But this is also about art and connection to ancestors and doing it all with meditation and intention. And I started to really connect with her. And again, people started to call my magical practice voodoo or hoodoo, but really it was just my ancestor awakening within me. Now, of course, I can track where she probably came from the ancestry research that I sort of did. But this is the ancestor who walked with me during this time. She is a distant ancestor of mine, but she's an ancestor of mine, and I did not ask for specific ancestors to come. You don't put up a photograph and say, I only want these ancestors to arrive. You say, ancestors, I'm open to you arriving, show me who you are, and then they come. And she really wanted to connect with me because I have been told by her that we are very similar. This is another ancestral one that I did. And this is a representation, I'm assuming, of my Berber ancestor, and then my Asian ancestor, and my indigenous ancestor. She looks very Polynesian to me. But then, of course, you can see me as Nuit, surrounding everything in all of the universe. And then on the back I wrote, we are the daughters of the witches you couldn't burn. We are the daughters of the savages you could not dissipate. We are the daughters of the Sufis you couldn't frame, and we are the daughters of the Berbers that you couldn't tame. We now rise up, never again feeling your pain. Liberation for us now and until the end of all time. We are sacred, we are truth. We are the goddesses reminding you, we rise, you fall, remembering our place is found in all. Let it be. Kun Faya Kun. And then this, of course, I was trying to paint my experiences in meditation, and I know that that's hard for people to understand unless they've traveled the Kabbalah or whatever the Sufi version is. I'm assuming it's similar, or a magic person, a witch, a kahina, like a true mystic, any of those things, and you would be able to understand this thread of paintings that I did. This one too. I am the Omega and the Alpha, that's what it was called. Clarity of the universe has been restored. This one I started doing in the spring of 2020 as well. And it's based off of the picture of me sitting on top of one of the hives that's at Rishikesh, the Beatles ashram that they were at, that I sang in and I sang under, and I have a picture of me sitting on top of it. And then this one, which, yes, I understand how many planets are in our solar system, so nobody gets upset. I'm in the universe, not just our solar system. So this is the painting I did, which is essentially creating the universe with the idea. This is very Kabbalistic, very shamanic, very witchy, very magical. I think Sufis understand too, but I'm unsure. It's the concept that you love yourself, and you can create and find that love through the love of self, because you connect beyond space and time, knowing no space and time. So it's myself creating the universe for myself, for the love of my ancestors, for the love of all, as the All Mother, all of that stuff, right? Again, this is kind of for magical people, or evidently those that do hoodoo and voodoo would understand what I'm posting about too, which I just call ancestral because that's who showed me how to do these things, is my ancestors. So this one, the Alchemical Dragons, I did this May of 2019. And it's the idea of the sun and moon concept wrapping around your body. The tree of life can be seen as your spine, it can be seen as your energy center, it can be seen as you. The male and female principles can be seen in the sun and moon. And then the fire and water principles of the alchemical dragons or serpents. All right, and I think that sums it up. This is a little longer than I wanted to make it. But I definitely recommend just making the intention of connecting with your ancestors. And again, you're not saying, I want these specific ancestors to come through. And a lot of times, the ones that are going to speak to us right now are the ones that have something for us. You know, that ancestor that connected with me, she was showing me a whole lineage that had been forgotten because that's what they tried to do to erase us, right? So you have to connect. And then she showed me how to remember a whole part of me and a whole magic being, because I feel so connected to her and I feel so connected to what she understood. And when I came into this world, even though people here found me to be weird or out there, or they didn't understand what I was talking about, I always just felt this way. So reconnecting with her was like reconnecting with family, because it was. And again, I wrote a lot about how I felt more connected to the stars as being my family than here upon the earth. And that still is true, especially now that I can't connect to nature the way that I used to. But I highly recommend putting up a photograph. You can start with one side of your family if you want, or both sides. And then you just kind of make the intention. Pay attention to the foods that you're cooking, the spices that you're using. In meditation, what are your experiences? And then from there, you really will start to connect, and you'll have this great foundation that really is so powerful, because in this time period, I have not had a lot of human beings here or supportive of me, but all of my ancestors have walked with me, and all of the earth that I have been a part of my whole life, singing to and dancing to, and praying to, has been here for me in a time when people just kind of failed to be. And it's not all their fault, because society has led people really far astray, and so it's really challenging to be a human in today's world. But I highly recommend reconnecting to your ancestors. And that doesn't need to look like getting a DNA test. You can do it through meditation. You can do it through photograph. You can do it through cooking. You can do it through sitting outside. You can do it through intention. There's so many ways. Reconnecting. Very important right now.